gifted a dream when I was 16 years old. It is a memory that I had. Like I dreamt it, or who knows, maybe I really did see it. Maybe there were parallel worlds crossing.
There's this interconnectedness, and that at some point certain, areas, they just connect, and that you've been gifted this opportunity to channel it.
When I realized, there's something special here that is being transmitted to me.
About it, I felt there's something magical when you talk about your dreams. I feel like I'm there.
There are these moments of inspiration that are like flashes in the pan. And if you act quick enough, you can cultivate that flash and bring this amazing art into being.
Adrian Hopffgarten, welcome to our podcast. I'm going to introduce you. You're an Emmy Award winning producer, director, and also, as you said on your website, a creative juicer.
Yes.
I love the description. Also, it says that you're sharing stories with a touch of zest. And that gives us all the flavor we want. So can we please speak about that, and also about your upbringing? Because you shared with us that you were surrounded by art your whole life, with your mother being a florist, a flower designer, and your father designing spaces. So how did it, what kind of, impact it had on you as a child?
Cool. Thanks. Well, should I start with the child question first? Or the creative
sure.
juicer? Cool. Okay.
I think it's all connected.
Yeah, totally. So my parents were very they both had a huge love of art. And so as a little girl, my mother would barely ever sleep, and she would just pick flowers or take me to different markets where they would be selling flowers. And she would pick just all these beautiful, bright colors, and she'd tell me about the flowers, and would design these gorgeous arrangements for different clients of hers. And I was always so amazed at how an arrangement of specific colors could either brighten the mood of a place, or also provide a space of grief, or a relaxing space, much like Ava with those orchids behind her. But that was something that was just so cool to me. I always was watching my mom just kind of disappear into her workroom at night, and then in the morning have these beautiful pieces of craft. Sometimes my mom would make scarves, sometimes she would make gift baskets, but my favorites were the floral arrangements. Sometimes they look like fire, and other times they almost kind of vibrated with their own life, with all these different colors. And so I just was so moved by that. And yeah, I love color, right? Like definitely my mom inspired my love of color. She would take me to a ton of museums, and at a very early age, we would go to Italia to be with our family there. And my mom made sure that we were in Firenze. We went to the Uffizi,
My
we would just
place.
wander.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we're both like Firenze. Like, oh my God, that's where we
Yeah.
work together.
We shot the project there, and it was
Oh, that's
magical.
so cool. Oh man, amazing. Yeah. And we're from Trieste, and so seeing the seaside there, knowing what the ocean means, the sea meant to my family. My family is all amazing swimmers except for me, unfortunately. But I grew up in an apartment in DC, so but like my aunt Francesca and my mother and my Nona were like incredible swimmers, and I think also we would play with seashells, and we would play with rocks, and we would just make these fun arrangements on the beach. And so that tactile yeah, that tactile play that I really looked up to my mom was a really big piece of my childhood. And pivoting to my dad, when I was a little girl, my dad used to always encourage me if I was bored at a dinner. We didn't have iPads or anything like that. He'd be like, cool, like make yucky, like make whatever you want. And so I'd be bored as all hell. And, a little kid, like ready to leave, rambunctious. And he'd be like, cool, you want the mustard? You want to take some of this bread? Like I would make
Oh.
these weird, I'm sure for the rest of the people at the table, they were pretty grossed out, but hey, all the adults got to stay and eat and talk and hang out. Wow. And we're Italian, so like, some of these meals would be lasting a long time.
Hmm.
So the fact that my dad really encouraged me to like play with whatever I had on hand was a really big blessing. And he was both an architect, trained as an architect. So I'd actually been to some of the buildings he designed. But a lot of my like father's gift is in his spatial creation of spaces. And so I would say my father really inspired a um, love of cinema and of
Mm.
music, because his like superpower was designing these amazing home audio and video theaters. And so, you know, I'd see these rooms that my dad would like design for people where, you put a record on and you know, you are there with the artist. You're hanging out with Beethoven. You're seeing the roots, play right in front of you. Kurt Cobain is singing at MTV Unplugged, and that really, like that album in particular, I loved Nirvana Unplugged in New York. Like that album, I remember feeling like I knew Kurt Cobain and Dave Grohl and Chris Novoselic, the entire band, because I literally would hear that band all the time. And so the love of music, the love of pacing and sound design really like my father inspired a lot. So all those things together. And he always made really funny doodles. So like at those dinners, or if it's just me and him, he'd pick up a napkin and start doodling on a napkin and then be like, your turn. And so that play element was always
Hmm.
very much inspired by both. Like both of them were like, cool, like your turn, you go. And I feel really grateful for that, for sure.
Mm.
Oh, you mesmerized us, definitely. What a
That's
beautiful,
beautiful.
beautiful childhood and this playfulness that your parents introduced, and it's the zest of life. I feel like with architecture, I recently had a conversation with someone who is a filmmaker, but a former, if you can say so, former architect. And he said that design in spaces, it's much more about just functionality. It's about creating the feeling, creating this
Mm.
atmosphere that people could relax, could, feel their best. And I think that's what your father taught you as well. That's beautiful. And do you still have this playfulness around you? Do you stimulate
Yeah.
it?
Oh yeah. I have a bowl, a fish bowl full of Legos that when people come over, you can come and play if you want to make your own. I have a ton of markers. My wife is not stoked about that. No, she loves it. But she is an incredible soccer player and
Mm.
mental artist, I would
Mm.
say, thought artist. So sometimes I can be a little bit explosive and have things all around the house. I also have, you can't see, but like I have animals all around
Mm.
that are super cool. One
Wow.
more, because the elephant is my jam too. But yeah, it's, different essences of, I think, again, having that tactile element is just such a key to sparking some creative flames.
Mm. Do you still
Yeah.
play with food?
Sometimes. Now I'm more cooking. Now more cooking.
Okay, so
Um,
the playing is now you cook some amazing or you make some magical meal or something like that. Is that the
yeah,
playfulness?
yeah. If my wife's been waiting too long, I better make it like if I have time, I like to try to make it look pretty.
Mm.
Mhm.
Um, but often it's like I'm like, yo, I'm hungry. But Emily also cooks a lot, so I don't want to just say that. But
Yeah, yeah, okay. And then you play with the food. No, no.
yeah. Yeah.
No, no, you eat it. So everything is really, it feels dreamy, your
Mhm.
world. It feels really dreamy, just the way you introduce yourself, how your life was, how your father and mother inspired your artistic way and the way you're now living. And I would love to go into that even further, dreams and divine gifts. And I know
Mm.
you had this beautiful dream came to you. It's the Mexican girl. And it was gifted to you, I would say, when we talked about it. It was so
Yep.
beautiful. So we really want to dive into that. And what I would love to talk about is this when dreams come to one and you're like the keeper, it's not your story, but it's coming through you. Um, what does that mean to you to be the keeper of a story? And it's definitely meant for you. I mean, we talked about this before. That's why I can ask this question because I know.
Yeah.
It's definitely a divine gift. Please, please tell us.
Mm.
Tell us from the beginning.
Whew. Mm. Wow. I really value dreams.
Mm.
Um, I was gifted a dream when I was 16 years old. I was actually studying abroad in Italy, and I would recount dreams to my parents. Really, when I was little, this is kind of wild. Before we'll get to the 16-year-old dream, but I lived in an apartment on the fourth floor, right by two big magnolia trees, like
Mm.
huge magnolia trees. And I had my own room, and at night sometimes I would see the like tree and the leaves make these like faces in the tree. And at the time, I thought the devil was like coming to get me. Like,
Mm.
Wow. Okay.
I thought, and I was raised Catholic and gone to a church, but I went to an all black church and it was like really joyful and amazing. So I'm not quite sure where this crazy fear came from. But I mean, also, no offense to Catholicism, it can, throw in some, seeing Christ on the cross and hearing some of the fire and brimstone stories as a little kid really can activate
Yeah.
some pretty crazy visuals, especially for someone like me. Um, and but again, like I love the music. But anyway, I would look in the magnolia tree and see a devil face like trying to get me. And this is like 2 to 3 years old, you guys, like really
Wow.
little. Like, and I told my parents about it, and my dad, like, my mom's a little freaked out. And they were like, I don't even know how. I just remember that they were like, hey, like you can not interact with that. Like you can say no to that. Um and so over time I started looking in the tree and I'd see like different faces or I'd see something different.
Mhm.
Um I once had a dream after that, like after I kind of like worked with this like crazy, creepy, dark feeling, um, to I once saw a knight leap over one side of the apartment, a red like knight leap over on top of a horse across the apartment building. And and there was a whole fleet of like a crusade of knights behind this person, and they were all taking flight over. I had not seen, there's this old movie called Bedknobs for Broomsticks
Mhm.
that Angela Lansbury's in.
Mm.
I had not seen that yet, but there's a lot of reminiscent scenes there. but yeah, I saw this steed like with its like little page boy holding up this like flag, and it flew from it like took this leap, the horse, and led this whole crew across the apartment building. And I remember looking up underneath the carriage of the horse and being like, not everyone sees that.
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty cool, you know? Like,
It is.
yeah. And I haven't really shared that with a lot of people, but it is a memory that like I had. Like I dreamt it, or who knows, maybe I really did see it. Maybe there were parallel worlds crossing. But I share that one to share. That's when I realized, oh, there's like something special here that is being transmitted to me.
Mm-hmm.
And at 16, fast forward now, I was falling in love for the first time with a girl, and again, being raised Catholic, I was like, whoa, my world's um, I had not realized that within myself or known. I'd had boyfriends before, so it was just, you know, a pretty crazy time. And I remember telling a dream to one of my most amazing teachers of all time, Antonella Vicini. She's amazing. I love her. And I told her we were on Naxos, very close to Taormina. And I was like, and I was not allowed to call her that then, Miss Vicini. Um, I had this dream last night where I was looking at this ocean. I was on the beach, and there's these deep purple indigo, gorgeous waves rolling, and I see the planets and the stars reflected in the crests of the waves as they're coming to me. And so, like, there's a starry night, but I'm seeing deep space within the crests of these waves. And she just looked at me and did not say anything for a while.
Mm.
Um, and it was almost as if I was feeling her feel the visual, like see it for herself, experience it for herself. And then she very quietly said to me, that was a gift. And you should be careful with who you share your dreams with. There's a reason you had that dream. Um, and I was like, wow, to have that type of confirmation, especially from someone, she's a master classicist. She knows ancient Greek, Latin. She knows Sanskrit. She's a freaking amazing, and she's a beautiful Italian. Um, and she espoused in me that year. I'd never had a teacher say, we were taking a Sanskrit like as an elective class, and it takes a really long time to learn Sanskrit. So she gave us a bit of a like crash course in the actual like writing of the different letters and like ta.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm.
she gave us some schooling within like the alphabet. But what her biggest gift for me was she told our whole class, read something, read the bleh. Read the
Gita.
Mahabharata,
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, Bhagavad Gita. Don't
Bhagavad
use
Gita.
that, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Use
No
read the
serio.
Upanishads. Yeah.
Yes.
Read the Upanishads, read the
Mm-hmm.
Vedas, read whatever. And whatever calls to you,
Mm.
write about it.
Mm.
And the thing that's really crazy that you just brought up, Ava, is the fact that I picked up on this waking life piece in the Upanishads, and it's about living within your sleep state and letting your consciousness be moved and awaken. And so at that time, I think the dream of the waves with the stars in it was about 3 or 4 months before I read this piece. But as soon as I read that piece, I probably wrote 10 pages nonstop for a long time. It definitely needed to be edited a little bit, but she loved this stream of consciousness, and
Mm.
she loved what I wrote.
Mm.
And it having that momentum, having someone who I also trusted, right? Like I could share more of my dreams. I could share,
Mhm.
I'm falling deeply in love for the first time with someone who'd already been in love multiple times before. But at the same time, I was being given these gorgeous dreams that were activating my imagination. And so it was a really potent time for me, both subconsciously while I was asleep and
Mhm.
personally as the person reckoning with their own, you know, what their own sexuality.
How old are you, if I may ask?
I'm 36.
No, I mean, sorry, that
Oh,
time. How old are
oh,
you
I
when
was
this was
16.
happening?
I was six.
16.
Yeah, I was 16.
Okay,
So this was
got it,
20
got
years
it.
ago. Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
16 when this is happening, when you're realizing like, okay, hey, I'm falling in love with this woman or girl, another girl, and having these profound dreams. Because just when you talked about it, I felt there's something magical when you talk about your dreams. I feel like
Mm.
I'm there. You
Oh, that's awesome.
catapult one into that. Or it just feels like you're like, wait, wow, this is. So there's even magic in the way you speak when you talk about them. So that's
Wow.
wow.
What a gift. Thank you for saying that. That's really
Yeah, it's
sweet.
beautiful.
Yes.
But please continue. I was just wondering, like, because it sounds so, I don't know, it's really deep for a 16-year-old. That's
Yeah.
why I was wondering, like, how old? This is beautiful. Okay.
Well, we're also, remember this year, so I studied Latin during high school. So we're also like in the deep mystical space reading these. We read Cupid and Psyche
Mm,
in the real Latin, right? Like that was a beautiful endeavor as well, where like,
mm,
and Miss Vicini would make us like reflect on that, reflect on this myth and this love story, in and several other. I mean, we did so much. It was honestly one of the best years of my life. So I just also have to share that we were being given beautiful opportunities to explore ancient temples, ancient sites, ancient writings, and also be exposed to Etruscan art, right? Like
Mm.
the Etruscans are also, we went to so many different tombs and these beautiful murals of people laughing together and laying on these beautiful like stela of sorts, like these gorgeous couches, for lack of a better
mhm,
word right
mhm.
now. Miss Vicini would be mad at me that I didn't remember that, but you get to savor life in a different way. So not only am I being connected to the ancients through this year, I'm falling in love on this other, I'm feeling and letting myself be led by love. I'm also being so deeply inspired by the ancients and by real life. So in Italy, of course, it's a little bit of a slower pace of life. There's a respect for you have pranzo later in the
Mm-hmm.
day. We all go and facciamo una passeggiata. Like off we go, and where you live life with a presence and a joy
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
and an awareness that life is not just about like in America, it's very go, 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 here, 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 wake up, go, gotta make breakfast, gotta get to work. It's just, I never lived for a full year, a full school year in that capacity. So there were so many things happening for me that year was very potent, like super
mhm,
potent. Lots of lessons that I think took years to unpack. Um, my year I went back, my senior year of high school was really tough for me. It was probably the darkest period of my life. I went from all this freedom, being nourished by the ancients and by these fellow students who were really just all also like they were being driven and we're
mhm.
exploring art in the Uffizi and in Rome. Like we're on the Capitoline Hill,
What a
we're
dream.
partying at discotecas. We're
Gorgeous.
living life. And then to come back to my senior year, I'm in America and I'm like, not as free. I
Mm,
was at a boarding school, super, really awesome education, but like it was restricting. And I was gay. I'd just been with this girl. So, and we broke up, things don't always last, right? But that was a really dark time. And I knew that I wanted to go to school in California. And I got into the school that it was my number one choice, and I was super stoked that I got into it. And I ended up leaving, like going to Pitzer College in Southern California, which was just at that time so cool. Like everybody there was living and breathing their own art and their own passions, and were really kind of open, like to share. So everyone was a little bit weird, and everyone had their own crazy thoughts and ideas. And so that was super fun. All of a sudden, be out of this restrictive environment and then back with a ton of very versatile and different multimedia kind of folks. Um, and my best friend, Eric, and my roommate, my freshman year roommate, Ivana, both are two of my deepest loves of my life, like soulmates for sure. Um, Eric and I are both a half Italian. He's my gemello, so my twin.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our dynamic is he is a Artemis and I'm Apollo because I'm pretty positive. I'm like the sun. I love to be like out and active. And Eric is very a deep thinker and mysterious, and he's more um, you know, deep lost in his thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And but together we kind of just, especially in
Balance each
college,
other out.
yeah, we were just a very deep friendship. I honestly was probably with Eric 80% of my entire college life. Um, so he's from LA. He knew he wanted to be a filmmaker. Like Eric always had a plan. And meanwhile, my friend Ivana, who is awesome and again, a big soulmate of mine, I don't think anyone truly knows me until they've met me with Ivana. And if they both spoke at our wedding last year. That's how, like, they're my people. But both separately said to me, dude, you got to take Intro to Media Studies. Take it as an art elective. Like, it's going to be awesome. And they were separate. These were totally separate instances. And then I remember one time the both of them were in the room and they were like, bro, like, you got to do it. And then they got excited and they're talking about it. And Eric found a loophole for me to take Intro to Media Studies without a prerequisite at one of the colleges in Claremont. And I took it with Eric and a very good friend of ours named Jeffrey Katz, who's an amazing filmmaker as well. And suddenly, our professor is a woman, is a person named Erica Cho, amazing person, and literally showed us so many crazy, weird films I'd never seen before, really made us look at theory, but think very differently and critically about the film we're watching. What are we trying to see? What are the stories they're trying to tell? What's the perspective? And then, of course, also teaching us like um, uh, film, like how to shoot video um, and and we made three different pieces during that class. And I'll never forget this, and I laugh so hard when I think about it. But one of our prompts was to um, make a chase scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I shoot this chase scene inside of our dining hall, and I have a beautiful friend of mine named Jeremiah running through this whole dining hall, and I'm like, I get it all on camera, and we're in the edit room, and Erica's like, "Hey, you could just cut. Like, we don't need to watch this. We don't need to watch Jeremiah go from this side of the room to that side of the room." And I was like, right? It's so silly because, of course, as a watcher, as a viewer, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, I'm in the editor's seat, and I'm like, oh yeah, like no one wants to watch someone run, like get the hustle, make the fast cut. Oh, he's landed and turned the door, done, right? Like, and that was a really as funny as it sounds, it's like editing 101, but it was such a profound moment for me to be like, oh, and I think there is when I started really developing an eye for pacing and for like the flow of an edit. But it definitely came to life there. So you asked about this dream when I was 18. I promise I'm coming around.
I
But
know.
so this film is happening. Um, and that that before that class started, and Eric would tell me about his film classes, his ideas. I really thought I was going to take math and anthropology. I love anthropology, but I was not so great at the math. I took Calc 2 as a freshman, which was really silly. I don't know what I was thinking. But I had this dream, and it was a saga. It was like I was home at Christmas, and I literally woke up with my pillow soaked in tears. And I had been crying, and I had woken up and felt how wet and like disgusting my face was. And I fell back asleep and woke up again. And this time I was like clutching the pillow and just like screaming almost. Like I was so moved. Um, and I honestly woke up and it was, I think like 6 in the morning, DC time. Eric used to be an insomniac, still battles with sleep. I'm like, I'm gonna call Eric. He was in LA, 3 hours behind me. And I recount my entire dream to Eric. And we talked for probably 3 hours. Like I tell him everything, and he's like, "Whoa, dude, that is insane. That is wild that I dreamt all this." And the premise is, without giving so much away, because I'm still in the process of making it.
Exactly. That's something we can talk about too, obviously,
Okay,
is
cool.
we're talking about here a project that is in pre-production or as in, yeah, hopefully we'll start pre-production soon.
Yeah,
Putting it out there.
it's so the reason I cried first, right? So I woke up and often I can't go back to the dreams. And sometimes I've over like dream artist is a weird term. I don't know if I totally I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a term, but it's not lucid dreaming exactly either, although it is in that there are times that in that dream every detail was so rich. I see it so beautifully, and it came to life with these scenes of like as if as if a watercolor was being painted. These gorgeous transitions, scene to scene, and I remember being like, "Wow, that would be really hard to pull off, but that's cool. That's cool." Like, but the first reason I was crying is that this her name is Nina. She's just a girl. It could be anyone's girl, any girl in Mexico, um, is is made to learn to read and write. And in the process of having to learn this against her will and having been kidnapped, she finds her voice and she starts writing these um, incredibly deep and gorgeous, pure writings about the interconnectedness of life. And so the first set of tears when I was just listening to her writing. I was just like, wow, this is like, how am I hearing this? Like, who is writing this? This is like Nina is like prolific and amazing. Like this person is God, right? Like this person is like so Mother Nature, like she is spirit. And you know, much love to Shakespeare, but this is like more kind of our time, more current, even though she's from 1860s Mexico. But it was not complicated the way she wrote. It was
Yeah.
her message. It was pure. It was unadulterated. It was raw. It was primal. It was brilliant. Um, and that is also the reason why I've never written it because I've been trying to bring her to life is a huge responsibility. Also now as a creative and over time, I've considered never ever letting the reader, maybe the viewer or watcher, the audience only gets to see how people are impacted by her writing.
Mm.
Um, I I have begged my dreams, please give me another chance to hang out with her. And it's been 18 years and I've never had that chance again. But it's okay. She was so alive that one night. And to your point, Ava, it's like, yeah, I feel a responsibility to bring her story to life for sure.
The way you speak about it, it feels like something deeper, something that is really, there is this shared human experience that you somehow channel, that there is this interconnectedness, and that at some point, certain, areas, they just connect, certain points connect, and that you've been gifted this opportunity to channel it. Maybe there was a person like that, living person, and you just channeled her experience. And in the dream, I'm talking, I have like goosebumps.
Oh man, that's so sweet.
You're a
Thank you.
fascinating storyteller, and it feels like you just channel this experience, and the story has been told through you, and maybe exactly in that point of time. I don't know what it was about, like a constellation of the stars or something, but we all are connected to this, and somehow through daily chaos, we just forget that we're actually part of something so much bigger, so much deeper, so much like a living, breathing thing, like an organism. To that point, do you feel that some stories, they deserve time and they deserve, like, there should be a particular moment of time when you begin to develop that story? So it needs to be brewed, it needs to be developed, and at some point you'll make it. Do you believe that that exists?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like, there's some people who I remember a really good friend of mine wrote a song about me and he wrote it in one day. He wrote it in 15 minutes. He was riding his bike, he pulled over, and he and I used to live together and make music together. And Evan basically like sung to his iPhone on his bike and wrote some lyrics down. So he had his melody in his head, came home and basically recorded it within like 20 minutes as a scratch track. And he's like, here. And I was like, dude, whoa, how did you do that? Right. So I think brilliance, Allen Ginsberg with Howl, like I feel like he like sat down and just wrote Howl. Like there are these moments of inspiration that are like flashes in the pan. And if you're act quick enough, you can cultivate that flash and you can and bring this amazing art into being. So I think that exists. To your point about the stories needing time to brew, yo, I'm 36, about to be 37, and Nina has always been with me. And um God, I want to do her justice, right? And I can't tell if am I ready as a storyteller. I've shared with it now with more people, but for a long time I didn't share it with a lot of folks based on what Miss Ficini said, which was, guard your dreams. Like these are precious. But I realize as I talk, she's alive a little bit, she's in your mind. You can think about her. Um, so I can't tell if it is that I was ready or I am ready or am I not. And I also do know that I need to get ass and chair time, right? You got to do the work.
Do the work.
Yeah.
True.
It's like this creative spark that you had, and you said that you're still in contact with this spiritual being that essentially this girl is, I think, and she communicated her experience and um, her life with you. And of course, this is a blessing, but maybe it's also a burden, right? Because you feel the sense of responsibility to do her justice. And with those creative sparks, I read Rick Rubin's recent book, and he was saying it's like they're not particular, like they exist, just a plethora of them, and they're in abundance. And it's more about they're choosing the creative, and they like you feel the spark. And if you're in a state of openness, if you're in a state that you are willing to receive this, they're gonna find you. So you're just gonna have to stay open, which is like sounds really easy. Of course, you're open, but it's much more than that. It's being needed to stimulate it creatively all the time as well. So I think that's what you're doing, and that's why you're having those lucid dreaming. I think that's what it's called. But you have another story. You have also that's not the one-time experience, right?
No, yeah.
Yes. I want you to tell the story because I don't know how much details you want to share, but it's a close relative of yours and the story that is dear to your heart that
Oh,
you.
you want to hear it? So uh my grandparents, my Nono and Nona. So my Nono was an American GI
Mhm.
who was stationed after World War II. Basically, he like missed World War II. He turned 17 and immediately enlisted like that
Mhm.
day. That was his like his dad and him went to the he wasn't actually 18. But he was like, I'm signing up. And essentially, the war was almost over. So after he did basic training, he actually went to Japan, and Japan really left this is a man who's only ever lived in the hollers of Kentucky. His dad was a coal miner and a pastor. My grandpa was the eldest of seven children. He had
Mhm.
an enormous sense of responsibility at a very young age, and was helping them in the garden, doing whatever job he could while also having an education because his father, it was really important to him. But Nono, as a young man, was like, I gotta get the hell out of here if I'm gonna help my family financially. Like, I gotta go. And so this is taking a boy from Kentucky during, post-depression era, really tough. They were very, very, very poor. Um, and uh, but always fed because of his mother's garden, which is
Mhm.
like really cool. Something he's very always told me, like, sow your garden, he always had veggies growing. But he ended up going from Kentucky to basic training in Texas. Then he was in Seattle, Washington. He was in having to be in the barracks full of snow all around. And then he set sail to Japan. And he recalls sharks chasing the boats because they knew that people may die. Like
Mhm.
if a boat got sunk, their
Mhm.
bodies to eat, right?
Mhm.
It's horrible and but facts. And so he remembers seeing these fins chase, and at first you're like, oh, they're dolphins. Sometimes they were, but when they were like this, they were sharks.
Mhm.
Wow.
And he remembers going to Japan for the first time, and like the way he recounted it, the destruction in Japan really left an incredible mark on my grandfather. And uh, Hiroshima, you know, you're a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid seeing that type of destruction is just insane. It's just mind-boggling.
Mhm.
Um, and he was also pretty moved by the culture. A lot of people were incredibly respectful and kind. And so I think that it created, and let's be real, like the propaganda in America also, like they felt like they were in the right.
Mm.
But when he got there, it was pretty, this doesn't feel so good. This doesn't look right. This is not how. Yeah,
Mhm.
it really stuck with him. So he was in Japan for a year or two. He actually was there when General MacArthur made the Emperor of Japan bow. He wasn't in person there, but he was lined up, one of the men, as the Emperor. General MacArthur made him bow. So that it's this very historical moment in, world history that my grandpa happens to be sort of a young man growing up, and seeing how devastated and also how incredibly amazing Japanese culture was. Like the art, there were so many things that he came back being like, wow, like he had learned so much there. So it was, it's wild, this really crazy dichotomy. America's feeding you this
Mm.
propaganda. We got to go get the Japs. Like, ugh. At the same time, he's seeing the art, he's seeing the people, he's living that. So it was a really, again, I would say a wild time. And he then got posted in Trieste, Italy, to make sure that there was an American presence there, to keep the fascists at bay, um, and any fascist uprising. And so all of a sudden, after being in Japan, he is brought to Trieste, and he recounts being on this boat, and the people looked more like him, right? Like he felt like a fish out of water in Japan a little bit. Um, when he got to Italy, he felt a little more like, oh, wow, like this is incredible. Like seeing these,
Mm.
the city, the port, um, you literally like back in the day, like you went right to the Piazza Unità, like right in the
Mm.
middle. So you get off the boat, you're in the middle of Trieste, like you're in the center of town. And so it's a center of commerce, it's beautiful people, it's fashion, they're women. I mean, it's like really more in, and they're white. Like, let's be real. Like, I'm not trying to say he was racist. I'm sure he was, though everyone was back then and is in some capacity, but he he was feeling more at home and more inspired and more connected to that way of life. And he actually was given a position at the post office in Piazza Unità,
Mm.
which is again like it's a center, it's the square in town that is right on the water. And so all the young women who have to walk to school or to their university, or if he wanted to go to the market to get fruit, he's there. Like he
Mm.
is in it.
Jackpot.
Yeah. And so he has lots of funny stories, and he was very shy, very tall, slender man, very handsome. And it kind of was like a little bit, there was not as much devastation. There was destruction, but it wasn't. So I think it was for his nervous system a little more like,
Calming.
okay,
Mm.
calming and being there. And of course, like I said, the women really helped. He really liked the ladies. And the American Red Cross, at the time, used to have these dances. And so
Mm.
Italian men and women could go to the dances as well as the soldiers. And it was basically a place for the soldiers to have a place to relax. And at that time, a lot of young women in Trieste had not eaten, like really, not had a lot of food. There was a
Mm.
lot of hunger during World War II, and my Nono is one of them. She had to hide in the tunnels a lot during the raids and bombings in Trieste. And like one of her memories that I remember hearing is that her entire family one night had one chicken wing, that all these Italian families, Triestini families,
Wow.
split a chicken.
Mm.
And she ate one chicken wing with her whole family. And basically all of her elders were like, you eat it, you're growing, you need it. And of course she ate as much as, she felt was right, and then shared it with them. But that's just a chicken wing, right? Like that's served, that just to me it's like wow, like to
Mm.
see. So they both experienced what it's like to not have, but for
Mhm.
her before the war, Nona had the most cosmopolitan life. Nona she's wearing, her mother was a seamstress. She looks amazing. She's like in the Fendi of the time, the Gucci of the time. Like in all these custom dresses, gorgeous coats. Like her mother everyone would like ask for her Nona Bruna to like make them clothes. So like Nona looked like a boss, even though they didn't have a lot of money. All of the leftover fabric, um, her mom would make her a really cool outfit. So she's this cosmopolitan only child living in Trieste before World War II, and then experiences what it is like to have not actually a very good friend of her named Valeria was pulled out of class, a Jewish girl in front, and my Nona tried to stop it, and then the Nazis basically almost they were like told the teacher you need to put that girl in her place. And that's a scene that my Aunt Francesca actually wrote, and it's gorgeous. But anyway, it's a really palpable moment in time in history, right? These two characters and their motivations. And so once Nona came out of World War II, she was ready to live life. She was ready to, every day is the day. You could die tomorrow. You could die right now. And so what I remember, she passed when I was 7. And I will tell you, that woman had, oh my God, so much life to her and was vivacious and vibrant and shit. When she was angry, y'all got to run for the hills. Like it was terrifying. And again, like her as a character versus my very slender and shy and more soft-spoken grandfather. It was crazy. But they're deep. She was dying of breast cancer, and the way he took care of her, um, again, like I remember her as full of life when she had all the energy in the world. And to see the way this man, like she was the boss, like he called her boss. To see the way he dutifully took care of her the last 2 to 3 years of her life. She did pass when I was 7. It really left a mark on me. Like it just was beautiful. I mean, that's what love is, right? Like that is
Yeah.
enduring love. And with great sadness, did I totally understand what was happening? No, I just knew my Nona was really, really sick. And it created this dissonance because, like I said, she was literally so full of life. And even from her hospital bed, Kenny, go grab she was still like orchestrating activity and fun. Um, and she also coordinated all these Italian people in her house to have these parties. So like from 0 to 5 years old, they were like the little hub of like Triestini women who married American GIs. Um, they always had friends over, and so it was a very lively place. And so once Nona passed, it was um, I don't know how people can continue to live. I honestly like I give him major credit for continuing. He lived another 27 years after she passed, and um, it was like the light of his life like went out. And he spent a year mourning, and I did not at that time ask him stories, but a year later. He wrote my mom and Francesca, my aunt Francesca, a letter saying, I think I'm ready now. He wrote actually Nona a letter saying, Boss, I miss you. There will never be another you in my life. I will never marry again. You are the love of my life, and I need to live my life. And he basically, it was to the day that she had died. He wrote her this beautiful letter, and he started dating after that, but it was very clear, you are always my wife, no matter what. Um, he wore her ring. This is his wedding ring with her name engraved in it. And I'm now getting to wear it. Um, and again, so a year after she passed, suddenly, I'm hanging out with my grandpa. It's not quite as the same, right? Like he loved Johnny Cash, he loved singing. And in order for my mom to get respite from how crazy I was, she'd be like, Dad, like take Adriana.
Take me.
Um, yeah. And and he would take me fishing and I would be bored out of my mind. And because you're just sitting and you're sitting and you're sitting. And I would ask him to tell me stories. Tell me stories about Nona. Tell me stories about Nona. And at first there was a lot of friction. It was hurtful. It was so painful. And I was 7. I was at now 8. Come on, man. Tell me a story. Tell me a story. And, sometimes it takes that, hey, hey. I was very persistent. And so we developed this beautiful, our whole lives together. Nono could tell me stories and create this beautiful container where it was both hard and easy. And I also got a witness. So as an interviewer, someone when I do documentary, I often um, I have so many thoughts on this, but because I spent so much time looking deep into my grandpa's big blue eyes, and he's telling me like what it's like for her to watch your lover die. Like
Mm.
he's telling me about her last moments. He's telling me about his time in Vietnam. He's telling me about being away from her. He's owning that he cheated on her when he was abroad on during the war. And he was like, it's just friction. I mean, like these are really intense things to share with your granddaughter. But we were always locked in the eyes. We always were, there was such trust. And that was developed over, like I said, almost 3 decades of story time together. And so his that experience for me, I think has always left a huge impact upon me, especially when I'm interviewing for a documentary. Like I have a presence with the way I'm able to hold space, and I also love body language. Sometimes silence is so loud.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And is that, I am assuming, I don't know the truth, obviously, I'm asking this, but it feels like that is one of the reasons why you decided to start with documentaries, that you went into that. Because, I mean, I just lost my grandma, so it's,
Oh,
I'm
I'm so
sorry.
sorry. I'm holding you in my heart for sure.
But a wonderful woman, a boss, strong, carried the whole family on her shoulders. She was amazing. And we're a big family in Iceland, so it was beautiful. And but they had the luck, grandpa and her, they're both, my grandpa is still alive, 93. She also passed away now, 93. And I
Wow.
mean, he's hilarious because he was like, why did I marry an older woman? Like they're the same age. I'm like, yeah, grandpa. Okay.
He's got his
Um,
humor. I love it.
yeah, but he had to say it was the same love that you're talking about. They were able to be together for over 70 years.
Amazing. That's such a blessing.
Isn't that a
Amazing.
blessing that they could
Yeah.
spend their whole life together? Like it's beautiful. Um, so as I said, when I'm listening to you and what you're telling us, and it doesn't surprise me that you're an Emmy Award winning, producer and documentarian. As you're saying, just the way you tell stories when one is listening to you, we haven't been talking a lot here because it's just mesmerizing listening to you. We're just like,
Oh,
Yes.
you're very kind.
like I'm
You're
just
very kind.
it's beautiful. And what I would love to ask you is that, is there a part of you, like parts of you, like identity, questions, stories? Sorry, I'm very emotional now.
Oh, well,
That you
thank you for
still
sharing.
that you still feel are like unseen in your work?
Hmm. I think, yeah, I, I shared, there's another dream. We won't go all the way into it, but it's about it's a folk horror mystery crime
Mm-hmm.
with a lesbian secret romance at the heart of it. As a queer person, while I have not had the opportunity, nor have I done this yet, have I brought queer love to life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is something I would like to do. I would also love to, love to me is such, it's like the force, right? Like it is so abundant when we have it,
Yes.
and reminding us as a society um, that we can tap into that is really moving for me. And as a queer person, and seeing my quirky love with my amore, um, I'd like to, yeah, I'd love to share that. And a lot of queer films or queer love stories have been made traditionally in mass media are directed by a straight man, which is just bizarre. But of course makes sense for all of the reasons.
That
Um,
we unfortunately know, and it's
yep, for
time to
sure.
change.
Yeah, and I think that that's a motivating factor. That is one um, for sure that I'd like to bring into being. And I also think, and this is you know, tricky, but in the time of Great Divide, the stories that connect us more whole as humans
Mm.
are really beautiful opportunities, I think, for, I hope, conversation, for bridges. Um, and that is something that I also would like to do.
Mm.
I think when a story is able to move people, it doesn't matter what side you're on, if you can relate to the very human emotion that's driving the story.
Yeah.
Um, and understand all of us as characters are faulted. Like we're all faulted. But we're all beautiful for our flaws, right? Like we all have our um I think this is something about me that's true. I see the light in everyone. Um and I want to excavate that light. I want to highlight that light. I want to, that's where I try to focus. My friend Eric is very, uh, he can write really dark and beautiful stories, but for him, humor is like really, where can you find if you're not laughing, you're crying, right? And so I love reading his screenplays and the stories he's writing because he's able to tap into that. I think I'm a little more serious. He's very serious as well, but I think he's able to bring out humor into his, whereas mine, I don't know, maybe I don't know if they're quite as funny, but he has a lot of witticisms in his writing that I admire and appreciate, and I think are very token of his work, if that makes sense. Whereas mine is, I don't know if that's my jam. It's probably not. Um, but like I said, giving opportunity for unity and universal things and connecting as closely as humans is a gift. I mean,
Yes.
we're so divided. We're so,
Yes.
it's horrible. You know, it's hard to wake up every day and feel like my kid, if I ever get to have a kid, praise, I hope. Like, am I leaving this place? And like, is it, you know, it's intense. I think we all can, we all as a collective humanity can feel that.
Yeah.
And life wants to live, you know,
It
life wants to live.
does. It does.
Yes.
I think also that we're saying it, we're divided. What's so sad is that inside of ourselves, we're divided. It just starts there. We're confused, we're scared, we're insecure. There's so much in this system that just teaches us that we're wrong, that there's only this way or that way, that confuses us even more. So it can be hard for people to even let love in, which is scary and such a shame. So we push it away. And that's why I think artists like you are so important. And the stories you've been telling us now, that you will be telling in the future, I just feel it, are so important. That we see that how healing love is, and how important it is that we embrace it, and that we're open to it, and that we just, yeah, allow it in. And yes, it's still gonna hurt.
Mm.
We're gonna get hurt. It's just, that's life. And maybe that's something that also is allowed to be there, like your grandfather said. Yes, he cheated on your grandma, still he loved her to the moon and back. And I'm sure he's not, proud of it,
No, not at all.
but he loved her to the moon and back. And it's just, that's, yeah, I think that's something that's so important. So thank you so much for just telling us that, about these stories. And I'm very excited to, we will invite you again to talk about
Yeah.
when they're coming out.
We'll see. Yeah. I hope so, you guys. It'd be
Yeah, no,
amazing.
definitely, because it's just, it's important. It is important, and we need that. We need this. I think we need this love lesson. We need these love lessons now to understand that it is something that, because that would fuel us. And that is something that gives us any energy to really look at both sides, even if I'm not, on your side, or I don't think the same way, I can still listen and understand, or at least give you the space, those that I do not agree with, like, I'm just going to say it, Trump, it is what it is, still just give the space of like, what is going on here? And let's find, I'm not talking about him now, but the people that vote him, there are a lot of gorgeous souls out there, that we just find this humanity in all of it. What is it about? So yeah, please create it.
Yes. I wanted to say there is this certain level of intensity in you for sure. There's also some sort of inner stillness, inner peace. It seems like the way how you paused before, we ask you questions and then you take them in, and it's almost like a tangible physical process. It feels like you're really present.
Yeah.
And that's why it just sparks my interest. How do you cultivate that? And what sort of advice can you give to like a young creative person who is maybe not that grounded, maybe not that in tune with themselves and their creativity? What would you say to them?
Man,
If you can share a piece of advice, because I
Beautiful
think
question.
that's what we all want and need.
you gotta be raw. You gotta go for it. You
Mm.
gotta fuck up. You gotta do
Mm,
it.
Yes.
Don't be afraid. You've got to try. Like you, all of only you have your experience. And that is a fucking blessing. So
mm,
whatever fucked up thing happened to you when you were younger, what beautiful thing, how privileged you were as a child. Maybe you were the most privileged person of all time. And yet you have a twisted sense of
mm,
self. You need to get that out. I don't also love to think that life is just struggle or art is just struggle. I think a part of the gift that is creativity is that it's only yours. Only
Mm.
you can have what you can bring. It's
Mm.
true. Like no one else has had your morning. No one else has had your life. And so that is your strength. That is your superpower. Um, and I think I love when you guys reached out to me and you're like, yo, everyone talks about there's so many, this is the way to do it, or here's this
Mm.
tried and true way to do it. And I'm sure there's certain helpful, oh, you could do this and da da da. It's helpful to hear paths for sure and steps, but like don't let that define your path and um your legacy. I think what we all have to really recognize is that your life begins and ends with you.
mm. Sure.
And when you leave this world, you're gone. don't take yourself so fucking seriously. And I think that that's
Yes.
something I try to tell myself all the time, right? Like perfection, especially as a female, in a male-dominated industry, I think does screw us all over. We all try to chase and we want, and I can for sure relate to times where I felt down, because, I wasn't getting the feedback I wanted, or I didn't get the opportunity that I wanted. But the truth is that, for my grandparents' love story, for the way my parents raised me, for that first love I had, for Miss Vicini, for um, my wife and how she's impacted me, like that is all mine.
Mm.
These are my ingredients. These are the recipes that I have with which to make my art. And so you've got to fuck up. You've got to give yourself, lean into what you have experienced and the things that sit with you and the things that drive you crazy, or the things that you are not. That's an easy one. Everyone always says, like, what are you not?
Mhm.
Great. That's a great place to stay. Like, start thinking about that. Then what are you? Um, what can you do well? What can't you do well? One of the best gifts, I think, one thing that I'm really appreciative for myself is that I'm very well aware and I'm very vocal at what I'm not good at. I'm
Mm.
fine. I'm okay to not be great at everything.
Mhm.
Not everyone can be a Valeria head of tech, right? Like, right? But you are so
Exactly.
important to the art, right? And you are just as much a part of that process. And so I think that those things, that's how I would answer that question. And I am going to pivot, if it's okay, to the creative juicer question.
Yes, please.
Um,
Yes.
So I was very lucky. I left Portland, Oregon after working with Ivana on this beautiful film called Finding Bosnia. After college, I moved to Portland. I was on the creative agency scene there. And then my best friend and I made a company called Llama Mama Productions because she's the Ivana Llama.
Oh my God.
Um, yep,
That
she's
sounds
awesome.
Say that name again. That is so yummy.
Llama
Llama,
Mama Productions. Yep.
Llama
And
Mama
hopefully,
Productions.
yeah, hopefully we get to rejoin with each other. We always will, though, for sure. But I love Llama Mama.
Llama Mama.
And Ivana and I we fundraised for Ivana to live in Bosnia. And then we worked on this film. She was there for 10 months. I got to be there with her. And I just was so incredibly inspiring. I mean, just so incredibly inspiring to see Ivana get to experience her culture, and get to re-know her family and also create her own very real and at that time relationship with Sarajevo, and Bosnia. So I feel enormously privileged and grateful for that time. And we also worked for 4 years straight, like nonstop, together to make this film. And it's a big deal to make a feature-length film, um,
Mm.
especially when it was really just the two of us. And we had an amazing sound mixer who helped us named Nenad. He's amazing. Ivana's now husband made music. My best friend Evan, another very good friend of ours, the one who I made music with, and wrote that song. He also made music. We were able to really kind of do it in a, bootstrap way. And it screened at the Sarajevo Film Festival, which was just amazing. Um,
Congratulations. That's
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. Yeah,
Congrats.
it was so cool, and my family came to see the film, and to be in a cinema and watch your film for the first time
Mm.
is very deeply moving experience. And and also it's intense, right? You can see people who didn't like your movie. It's okay.
Mm.
Mhm.
Like it's part of life. And I think that's an important experience to have. Like not everyone's gonna like your art. It's all good. Like, and you gotta be a little tough, and that's okay. But at the same time, we had that experience. We're sitting in the, we're sitting in the theater, we're giving talks. It's incredible to see Ivana be asked questions by young people who were also reconnecting with Bosnia, or Bosnians who missed their friends who left during the war. Um, it was just such a moving experience. And also, it took a lot of time and effort, and I needed to get a job, basically. I had like no money. At the end of finding Bosnia, I was pretty broke. I'd been working as a bartender slash taco mistress. I used to make tacos, um, and uh, and then do freelance video.
Mm.
And so it was just, when I turned 27 and my wife was kind of open for me to, hey, like wherever you want to move, it's cool. Because Emily, my wife is, or my partner is uh, able to fly at that time all around the world for this job. So Em would go um, to Indonesia, to Tanzania, and for like a month or two at a time, and I wouldn't see Emily. And so Em was like, "Hey, you can kind of pick wherever we go." And I picked going back home to DC
Mhm.
and kind of regroup, live with my mom for a little bit. Emily came in and out, and so we lived at my mother's for a year. While I ended up getting a job at a production company called Green Buzz Agency in DC, and um, it was full-time video production. Like there was no working on a web ad. There was just you're going to be doing videos all day, every day, which is actually very rare. Where you have a staff as large as we had. We started out when I got there like 9 people, and by the time I left 5.5 years later, we had like 32 people.
Wow.
Um, which I just need to share as like a dream come true for someone in video. Like it's so cool to have so many people under the same roof, being able to brainstorm creative ideas and concepts. But one of my greatest passions, I also really love making motion graphics. We had 3 incredible editors at the time.
Mhm.
So when I first got there, I was getting to work with 3 amazing editors. Like they were freaking amazing. They used sound design, they pushed each other. There was like this unspoken rivalry, but not really. They would all learn like they would watch videos frame by frame and recreate those styles. And
Mhm.
so it's really invigorating to see people of a very high caliber just push each other and push each other. And so I got to the company with that dynamic there and seeing that just really, and the way I told stories, I think coming from creative agency world, made, was different. They had to work with me too. Um, and I'm very proud of each of those gentlemen. They're incredible. And made great work with them, right? And they pushed me, right? And so in that space of being a producer director with editors,
Mhm.
conflict. Conflict is a key ingredient. I think you are one of the men, his name's Orlando. He used this term about me and him where he's like, I think about you and me as polishing stones.
Hmm.
Ah.
And the way that we can get into like these, I think we should try this. No, I don't want to do, that
Mhm.
back and forth. Um, we found that correct way. We found a way to embrace conflict, but to polish each other
Mhm.
and to find that right, beautiful space of what's the right thing. And that was a very moving thing to have someone say to me, and it stuck with me. And I realized that that is what a gift is when you're working with collaborators. So I love working with people. I think
Mhm.
I'm not the solo person that needs to live in their hermit hole, and much respect to the brilliant folks that's their lane. That's freaking great. I love you. Rock on with your bad self.
Mhm.
That's not me. Where I really take light is with others. I think the joy, so now coming, pivoting to creative juicing and motion graphics. So I got to work with 3 editors who are, like I said, incredible. They're looking at sound design, pacing, storytelling. We're trying to dive in. At the same time, Green Buzz had a growing motion graphics department. So we had at the height of it, 3 animators and an art director.
Mhm.
And um, I love motion graphics. I love the idea, bringing the animate force, kind of, right? Bringing these worlds to life. Motion graphics are great to explain complex ideas, to tell a story. There's a lot of to show a product, you name it, right? Like we've all seen a ton of animations and motion graphics. And being at a company like that, you're of course being hired to make something, an explainer, a product, whatever, and this girl, again, conflict, while tough and is, um, it can push people. It can be hard. And I'm not gonna lie, I've walked away from some fights with, like, by fights, like these, little small conflicts.
Mhm.
And I will say for the most part, I've been better for every single one. Like,
Mhm.
absolutely. There have been times where people have humbled my ass like that. There have been times where I've pushed others to be the best that they can be. And that is how I got the term creative juicer. My very good friend Megan Weibel, Megan Zimmett now, she's married to her love. Megan very fondly and affectionately said to me one day, "You're the creative juicer. She's an incredible designer. She's also an animator, but really like her design is like so cool. Like she just makes so many cool things. She has the same birthday as Leonardo da Vinci and
Mm.
April 15th, and she just exudes whimsy and exudes this like she's living in the like Bardo space between fairy tale land um and very connected with nature. She is just a blessing here on earth.
Oh my God, now I
And
want
she
to
looked
see
at
her
me.
work. So sorry.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
want to see her work now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Please,
love to
quickly
introduce
continue.
you. She's incredible. Um, and Megan called me the creative juicer. And that just stuck. It was just like, yeah. She's like, yeah, you squeeze the best out of everybody. Like you push and you're not afraid of that. And I think that that is so important. When you have a person that you can you have to respect. There has to be an element of trust
Yeah.
to be pushed like that. I will say Eric is one of my, he pushes me, and sometimes, man, we get into conflicts and it's pretty rough. But at the same time, it's because he believes in me, right? And I
Mm.
know that. And likewise, like sometimes I give him some feedback and he's like, I'm not gonna take it. Like now we're in this place in our 30s, where he's like, you can tell me what you think and I don't have to take it. Hey, um, but I think when I like to push the bar, I like to make people work. I've also learned that in a professional space, when you're not making it for your own art, you don't necessarily like, I think I gave a lot of I think creativity is sacred. I
Mhm.
do. I believe creativity is sacred.
Mhm.
And I was giving a lot of that energy to that job and was mad at the job for it. And I don't
Mhm.
think the job was asking that. Like, I can't fully blame the workplace for that when I'm the one who's also like giving this energy. Um, so I take responsibility for it. I think also just like work in general, everyone can relate if you have a job, like, right? Like,
Mm.
we all got to do what we got to do. And it takes away, like, I wish I could just spend my days writing and working on my friend's art. Like, seriously, like, who doesn't want that? Like, geez. Um, God, that's the dream. But I want to take responsibility for that. And I think that I'm very privileged that I had that opportunity to have these three editors. At some point, we
Mhm.
had more editors. I
Mhm.
think we had five, and two other gentlemen that came, and then a female editor. Like, I and more editors, right? Over the course of the 5.5 years I was there, like you get to develop, you understand someone's style and you
Yeah.
understand what their approach is. And then I want to lean into that. And there may be gaps. Hey, I think we should explore this. You're not really bringing X, Y, and Z, and I don't feel that. Like, push that. Um, and sometimes you need that, right? Like all of us, in order to grow, have to have someone, or you don't, and you think you're God's gift to man. Like, I don't know. I don't believe that. Um, and I think a lot of folks with major big egos, like that's your Achilles heel. Like seriously,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you have an opportunity to grow. Um, and it's up to you to choose that.
I
So
love this polishing stones
Me
thing.
too.
yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. That's
I'm
bringing
taking
back
that
to the
with me.
polishing stone. Yeah, do it, please. Like,
This is it. This is
and
something I
that's credit
need.
to Orlando, by the way. My friend Orlando, he's the one who said it. I cannot take credit for it. He
Hey,
said it to me, and
Orlando.
it's a beautiful, beautiful metaphor for sure.
It
And what
is.
a beautiful way to look at conflict. What a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, growing way and liberating way to look at conflict and just go, this is polishing stones. This is your possibility to grow each and every time. Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I think it's very important, and in creative collaborations as well, that someone can, call you out on some twisted worldview that you have, but just in general in life, because these days, due to social media, due to the way how we live in those cluttered like states of, we just like, especially with social media, I think if you people spend a lot of time there, they just see the same, you hit like, and then the algorithm just feeds you with the same type of perspective, with the same type of ideas, with the same type of like everything to your pleasing. So you spend more time on it. And somehow your worldview is being reinforced. So you don't really have another perspective. So having someone who can like open up the space for you and see, like this is just a really small piece of the puzzle that you can see, but there's so much bigger there, the bigger picture. This is so important. This is a blessing that you have a creative collaborator who can do that for you in many ways. And it's a very grown-up attitude towards conflict, because a lot of people avoid them. They're like, oh, this is like not
Yeah.
really.
And that holds them back,
Yeah, it
I
holds
think.
them back. It is true.
Yeah.
Adriana, thank
There's
you
also you also
so
need your
much.
cheerleaders too, right? You need
True.
someone who's like, I love you, yo. Like my friend Rachel George just got my back, man. Like I'm so grateful. She was the officiant of my wedding, and I'm so ever grateful for her. She's an amazing producer in her own right and filmmaker, and she believes in me. Eric believes in me. Ivana believes in me. Like I have a lot of really beautiful people who um, believe in me. So I can spout all I want, but also recognize, your ego is real.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to be there. It takes hurt. You can overthink a lot, but as I said before, the beauty in conflict is the possibility of growth. And also, I'm the only person who has lived my life, and that's my strength. And as is yours, whoever's listening, and Ava and Valeria, like that's yours, and whatever you choose to make of that and do, and fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. I'm gonna say that. Adriana, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Just gorgeous. Yummy. This is like, it feels like I was playing with food.
Oh, nice. I love that.
Even though I was just listening, but it was just my brain was just going like, yes, yes, yeah. And the polishing stones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.